What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So we had heard rumblings a week or two ago about any game coming out this year that we think is locked in may not be, and the delays were pretty much a certainty at this point with what's going on currently in the world with the virus. Well, it looks like we have one of our first games now being delayed, big game 2, and that's The Last of Us Part 2. It had already been delayed once, but they're going to delay it again, and unfortunately right now, we don't know at all when it's coming out. They're not even going to give us a date. We're going to go over what's going on there and why games like Ghost of Tsushima started to even trend on Twitter with some concern. Also, we have to talk a bit about a big-time spring sale that's going on right now for the PlayStation Store and the eShop. A lot of good games there at pretty good values. As always, guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're brand new here, hit the red subscribe button down below. And we're going to start today with a new addition to Game Pass. We had talked about how Nier Automata was most likely showing up because we saw a slide in a live stream from, it was either Square or Platinum, that mentioned that Nier was going to be heading to Game Pass at some point, and then they did tweet out that it was heading to Game Pass April 2nd, so right now, if you have Game Pass, go on there and start downloading it. It's about 44 gigabytes, I believe. There might even be like a patch thrown in there, so it's going to take a little bit of time to download, but it is an awesome game, and if you have never played it or even really thought too much about picking it up at its normal $60 price, and sometimes it would go on sale for like $30 or $40 on the Xbox store, this is a great time to jump in and see what it's all about, because we're starting to see more focus now on Nier with the first one getting remade. There's a cell phone game coming out, which most likely means there will be another game in the series down the road that's probably already being worked on for maybe next generation. Maybe it's coming out like this generation. I don't know. I'm starting to think they might just be pushing towards next generation for it, but yes, great time to jump into Nier Automata. I think it's an awesome game, and if it's something that you haven't really thought about, like, oh, will I like this or not? I don't know. Game Pass is made for that, and it's there now, so I recommend going to check it out. Also, there's been quite a few requests to Square about releasing Final Fantasy VII Remake early, since a lot of retail stores in Australia and parts of Europe are starting to get the copies of the game in, and they're just selling them because Square said, hey, if you get them in, you can just sell them, it's fine. It's all over the place right now in distribution. Well, Square took to their FAQ page on their website and they decided to answer the question, will they release the game early digitally? While we understand the frustration of seeing the game for sale in some locations, the bulk of our shipments to retailers around the globe are still scheduled to arrive in stores for our April 10th street date. Also, changing the digital release date at this point in time could lead to logistical issues that could disrupt the digital launch for everyone. Therefore, we will be adhering to an April 10th digital release date. Thank you for your understanding. So there's a lot of things that go into this outside of just the retail space. Look, retailers all over the world right now are expecting, or at least anticipating, an April 10th release. It would be, Square would probably do some damage to that retail relationship by just dropping it on the store without giving them a chance to sell it. That's why everyone tries to launch at the same time. This is just a weird situation. The other thing to think about, if Final Fantasy VII Remake went live like over the weekend randomly, that PlayStation Store would get hit with a massive amount of traffic, as they're saying logistical reasons behind the scenes are making them stick to that April 10th release. Yes, it's a shame that a lot of people are picking it up because there is always that possibility of massive spoilers hitting the internet, going all over Twitter, ending up on your timeline. Very, very possible, and I get that, and that's why Square also released a statement saying, please don't spoil the game. We'll see, though, but I wouldn't expect it to go live randomly before April 10th, but you never know. Maybe you're walking through a Walmart to buy groceries, of course, and oh, look, there's Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'm going to go grab it. Oh, I also wanted to point something out that was pretty funny. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about an interview that Phil Spencer had with IGN later on the show, but there was something else that he did mention. It was Scalebound. This is what he had to say. We're not working on it. I'm not at Platinum today, but I'm almost positive they're not working on it. It's something we've all moved past, and it's not a moment that I see as a high point for me in my role, having to cancel a game that we've talked about for years. But yeah, for the people out there that are kind of thinking that maybe there's some things still in the works, there is not. And look, I know Scalebound looked pretty neat for a lot of people. It's kind of this really cool thing to think about happening again, getting revived. I honestly don't think Microsoft is that interested in it, but that's what gives me hope that maybe they would sell it to Platinum, because Platinum seems interested in it still. But Phil Spencer and others on the Xbox side, Aaron Greenberg, Matt Booty, have been pretty straight up about them not bringing it back. But we'll see. I mean, I would say never in the video game space, because maybe Scalebound does get sold to Platinum Games years down the road and they actually do something with it. You never know. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start with the eShop and the PlayStation Network big spring sale. Hundreds of games are currently up right now that are slashed pretty well in terms of pricing. We're talking like 50, 60, 70% off. Some of these games are just a couple of dollars and pretty good value, like I said here. And we're gonna go over some of the bigger ones. Number one on the eShop, you gotta buy Golf Story. It's $7.50. It's like super, super cheap. I'm telling you right now, Golf Story is completely worth it if you have not picked it up. But let's go through some of the other stuff. But you can go to nintendo.com/deals if you want a big overview of all of the different games here with some highlights. But like starting with Shovel Knight Treasure Trove at $28, absolute steal for all the games there. Definitely worth picking up if you've never played any of the Shovel Knight stuff, absolutely. Devolver Digital has a pretty good section here with the spring sale, and I would say absolutely something like The Messenger at $10. Great game, absolutely worth picking up. But then you also have Katana Zero at $10, or My Friend Pedro at $14. Also good games to grab there. If you're looking for a game to waste a lot of time with and you have a bunch of friends or people that you're hanging out at home right now, Diablo 3 is half off, which is really good on the Switch to have that game. Or if you're looking for something a little different, The Tourist is pretty cheap as well, being marked down 30%. And there's also WB, who seems to be a part of like every sale with their games. A lot of the Lego games, like I do like Lego City Undercover. I think at $12, that's a great pickup there. But all of the other different Lego games are included, and they are pretty cheap here. Some of them are compilations, which are always the best ones, I would say, to buy during sales because they get multiple games that are all marked down. And then you have Mortal Kombat 11 thrown in there at $24, which is really good. Strangely enough, Bastion and Transistor are very cheap, $3 and then $4. And then, of course, Activision rolls in with their Crash Insane trilogy at $20, CTR at $24, and then the Spyro Reignited trilogy at $20. Pretty good overall here. And then there's still several other games to look through as well. A lot of them even under $5. They have a little section for that as well. But I will say Golf Story, The Messenger, Katana Zero, those are some really good ones to pick up that people may have missed. Or if you just want the compilations, like I said, now's a good time to pick up something like Crash Insane Trilogy or Diablo 3 if you want to kill some time. Now on the PlayStation side, there's some big stuff there as well to check out. Things like Death Stranding, which is half off. It's $30, and while I don't know if Death Stranding sold that well, it's not bad at $30. I know it has some mixed reviews, we'll say, but I did enjoy my time with it, and at $30, it's not bad. But then you have games like Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, that's about 30% off, and I like that game as well, but I hope they try to do a bit more with the sequel to it. Hopefully we'll see, but 30% off isn't bad for that one. You also have Days Gone at $20. Doom 2016 is only $8, which is kind of funny. That's a great game at that value. Jedi Fallen Order is also pretty cheap, about $35. A very good game. I liked it a lot at $60, and $35 is a steal for that one. And then you have God of War at $15. Until Dawn is only $10. And then Yakuza 6, pretty good price there at $15. Sony claims to have nearly 600 games on sale here. The eShop has hundreds of games. So overall, pretty good spring sale to look through, and probably some pretty good timing since a lot of people are inside right now looking for things to play. You can get quite a bit out of $60 even going through either storefront, so good time to see some pretty good sales. Next up, let's talk about the delay with Last of Us Part 2, and it more than likely is going to have other delays take place even within Sony. It's going to be an interesting couple of months going forward here, leading up to even when we would think E3 time would be, because I think we're going to see another big time delay or even two here. So this is what Sony tweeted out. Update: SIE has made the difficult decision to delay the launch of Last of Us Part 2 and Marvel's Iron Man VR until further notice. Logistically, the global crisis is preventing us from providing the launch experience our players deserve. And we have heard a lot about how there's telecommuting going on, people are working from home, and it has made meetings and other things that would normally be pretty straightforward a bit harder to do. And Sony does go on to say that they don't have any other delays currently planned, But I mean, you think about that, you hear that, and you're like, oh man, Last of Us Part 2 was already delayed once, and Naughty Dog even put out a statement saying that it's indefinite. They don't know like when it's coming out at this point. They don't have anything really, I guess, in mind to the point where they can announce it. They announced this past release date, and it seemed like it was pretty firm considering we had a date earlier for State of Play, and then they just immediately pushed that back a few days later, it seemed. So it's all over the place. Obviously, everyone's kind of dealing with the virus and the situation right now in the world that is all over the place, right? People are scrambling right now trying to get this stuff done. And unfortunately, that just means some of these games are going to have to be delayed. Although I'll be honest, I kind of forgot that Iron Man VR was coming out. But to see The Last of Us Part 2 get delayed did start making people think, well, what about other games coming out this year? Because Naughty Dog was already crunching, right, to make that deadline, and I guess it wasn't enough to get them there with what's going on. But what about like Ghost of Tsushima that's supposed to come out in the summer? Is that going to be pushed to later on? What about games like Halo Infinite that we haven't even seen gameplay for yet? Is there going to be a big gameplay blowout at E3 time, basically, around there? And then we're going to hear that it's coming out with the Series X. Is it going to come out with the Series X? There's a lot of questions right now. We're even questioning if the Xbox or the PlayStation 5 are still coming this year. So to hear about Last of Us Part 2, it's definitely kind of putting things into perspective and making people realize that none of these games right now that we think are coming out in 2020 by any company is set in stone. Everything's moving around in the background, as we've heard. Now it's really just being shown to us that, yeah, everything's in flux and we don't really know what's coming out this year, even if we have a release date. Now, Jason Schreier did mention that the game, according to one of his sources, is basically done and ready to go, but they're delaying it for economic reasons. Like, I guess they're concerned that if they launch in May, a lot of people just won't be in a place to buy the game, although I will point out that Doom Eternal and Animal Crossing have shattered expectations for them. Doom Eternal selling apparently like twice as well as Doom 2016, and Animal Crossing just going on apparently being Nintendo's biggest franchise now all of a sudden, where it's already sold, we think, 3.5 to 4 million copies in Japan alone. So I don't really think that's a good reason to delay it out of May. I think if people want the game, they'll figure out a way to get it, right? And especially with how hyped up Last of Us Part 2 has been, I think most people would have just grabbed it anyway. But it's going to be interesting going forward over the next month or two as we start to figure out what is really coming out this year. Next up, we do have a skateboarding game coming out this year. Yes, that is right. Skater XL is launching in July. They put this tweet out here saying the release of Skater XL 1.0 is coming to all platforms in July, and we're bringing our homies with us. Now, the Skater XL has been in early access for a little while now, and they've been working up to the 1.0 version number, and they've been adding quite a bit of stuff to it. Different tricks, the ability to move around, different movement options. It's definitely been a process, but they have been taking feedback from players, as you can submit different suggestions in the game, like straight up bug reports, all of that as well. But they are actively asking gamers right now who are playing it in early access on Steam, what do you like about it? What don't you like about it? How can we make this a better game? And you know what? I do think the game has gotten better as they've gone along, which is great because EA just will not make Skate 4, and it annoys me so much. So I'm happy to see other skateboarding games show up this year. Sessions is coming out, I think, soon-ish. And then we do see Skater XL showing up as well this summer. I think it is worth checking out, but I want to put a warning out there. The controls are going to be a bit harder. It's going to take a bit more to get used to. It's certainly not a Tony Hawk game where you just press a couple of buttons and your character starts flipping and spinning everywhere. It's much more realistic, like a simulation is what they were going for, a simulation skateboarding game. So you do have to use the two sticks kind of in tandem with a left foot and a right foot, and it's much more satisfying, I would say, when you start landing the tricks, but it's going to take some time getting used to it. So I recommend checking it out in July, all platforms, which means we'll see it on the PlayStation, the Xbox, the Switch, and it's already out there in early access on Steam on PC. And in our last bit of news, let's talk a little bit about the Xbox Series X, because Phil Spencer's been making the rounds with different media outlets, and recently he talked to IGN, and they discussed quite a bit outside of just Scalebound, specifically about some of the decisions with the Series X after we found out the ports on the back. There were a few that were missing. Of course, we talked about the HDMI in being gone. Well, cover that in a second. But they're also missing the optical port that people would use for higher end headphones from Astro, for example. Well, it does look like they removed that after they, I guess, did some research, found out how many people were actually using that port on the back, if they could save money. I do think the Series X, they are trying to squeeze as much money as they can out of the GPU and the CPU and eliminating whatever they certainly don't need. And hopefully that means that we get a price tag that's $500 or less. We'll see about that one. But the audio or the optical port on the back is going to be less meaningful because Microsoft did talk to Astro and other high-end gaming headset manufacturers, and they're going to be pushing updates to fix those headsets. They did mention Astro specifically, but I have a feeling a lot of the other ones will also follow suit, where they will just be using the USB port on the Series X, which is good news, makes it a bit simpler, I guess, and that means your headset won't necessarily be out of date when the Series X comes up, which is good because those headsets aren't exactly cheap. But this is what Phil Spencer had to say about things like the HDMI in port or, oh yeah, that Connect port. The decision about HDMI in, decisions about the Connect port, decisions about IR Blaster on the front, all these decisions are things that we think through very deeply and try to figure out where the plans are. And I know with everything that we don't do, that we used to do, there's going to be somebody who's disappointed. It's not the funnest part of the job, but I think we have to plan for the future. Those Connect owners are going to be really frustrated. You know, I'm actually curious, does anyone out there use their Connect still? Like, you let me know in the comment if you still use it, okay? If you're one of the people out there who use the Connect, let me know in the comments. Seriously, I want to know if people do, because I don't think anyone really uses it at all anymore. And Microsoft probably realizes that. The TV thing might be used a little bit more, but I just feel like this is a good thing for the Series X, because when the Xbox One was coming out, Microsoft was all over the place with this. The HDMI in, this is a game console, right? Why? The Kinect, why? Like, their focus was so little on gaming, and if you go back and watch their E3, it was, right, TV, 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 oh, here's Rise, TV, 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 right? That was the big thing. That was what the joke was. So I like to hear that it's all about games right now is what they seem to be focused on, and hopefully that means that the Series X will be launching with some big-time games, or at least ones that are going to show up in the first year. I know launch titles aren't exactly the best for any system most times, but hopefully that means that these studios that they have are indeed working on some big-time games. Get a Fable out there, a Perfect Dark, we got Halo, a Forza, maybe revive Banjo-Kazooie, and then you got a new IP. Things can get rolling pretty quickly for Microsoft in the first year if they do things right. So I like the direction of removing all of the other junk off of the Series X that doesn't really help us play games. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This one is from Amrit Sodi saying, I was legitimately terrified that you were going to say that the Mario 35th Anniversary Remastered games rumors were false. No, I'll make sure I crush everyone's hopes and dreams in the title and the thumbnail for that one. No, I think you're pretty safe to be excited. That's what I'll say about the Mario stuff. I think Nintendo is doing it. I think the reason a lot of sources are out there saying this is because it's actually getting closer to being ready to show. And the biggest question we should all really be asking is how far are they going to go with these remasters and these remakes or remasters? Mostly because it's pretty much set at this point from what we've been hearing. But how much work do they want to put into them? I hope it's a good bit. I hope games like Sunshine look really good. I hope they figure out a cool way to include some sort of analog shoulder solution for it, and Galaxy could look phenomenal. So we'll see. Oh yeah, Mario 64, maybe that could look less like a 64 game, and by that I mean not the blurry mess that is on like a flat screen TV now when you plug your 64 in. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it's The Last of Us Part 2 being delayed indefinitely. No word on when another release date is. I'm kind of thinking at this point, it might as well be their holiday game. I know people don't want to hear that, but let's say Ghost of Tsushima does not get delayed. The Last of Us Part 2 could come out closer to the PlayStation 5, and then there's a patch for the PS5 ready to go day one so that you get like this beefed up version of Last of Us Part 2 with better visuals and frame rate, all of that. Also, what about the eShop sales and the PlayStation Network Spring Sales? Anything good in there that you see? Help each other out in the comments to find some cool stuff. Thanks guys for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you back here Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time for Newswave.